Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping back in time to 14th century South India. We're going to uncover the story of an empire so incredibly wealthy it was known across the entire world, and a capital city that somehow, in just a matter of months, completely vanished into ruin. Vijayanagar. Okay, just think about that for a second. This is a quote from a seasoned world traveler, a Persian ambassador, Abd Razak, and he was basically left speechless, saying that nothing on the entire planet was equal to this city. This wasn't just some regional capital, it was a global powerhouse, a thriving metropolis that pulled in merchants and visitors from all over the known world. So, that brings us to the central mystery we're digging into today. How on earth did a city this magnificent, this legendary, end up as a pile of ruins? Today, the site is known as Hampi, a huge, beautiful, but haunting landscape of fallen temples and palaces. And it's right there, in those ruins, that our story really begins. All right, Section 1, a city lost in ruins. For centuries, the incredible glory of Vijayanagar was just forgotten. It was buried by time. So how was it rediscovered? And what story did its stones finally start to tell? First things first, the name itself is a huge clue. Vijayanagar literally means city of victory. And that single name was used for both the entire empire and its capital city. Talk about a statement of confidence, right? And it's that triumphant name that makes its eventual collapse just so shocking. So for centuries, the city just lay forgotten. But then, in 1800, this guy, Colonel Colin Mackenzie, who worked for the East India Company, basically stumbles upon these ruins. He creates the very first survey map, and that kicks off what is basically a massive historical detective story. You have archaeologists and historians all trying to piece together clues from inscriptions, accounts from foreign travelers, and even local stories passed down by priests in the few temples that were still standing. Section 2. The Rise of an Empire. Okay, so to understand the fall, you've got to understand the rise. Let's go all the way back to the 14th century to see how this incredible dynasty even got started. The whole story starts in the year 1336 with two brothers, Harihara and Buka. Right on the banks of the Tungabhadra River, deep in the southern peninsula, they didn't just found a city. They founded the Sangama dynasty, and this was just the first of 4 dynasties that would rule Vijayanagar and eventually come to dominate the entire region. This table really paints a picture of the intense political landscape at the time. You had 3 major powers all fighting for dominance. To the north were the Gashapatis of Orissa. Their title meant Lord of Elephants. Then you had the Deccani Sultans, known as the Ashwapati, or Lord of Horses. And finally, you have the Rayas of Vijayanagar, who called themselves the Narapati, the Lord of Men. I mean, this was a constant, fierce competition for everything, fertile lands, and especially control over the super lucrative trade routes. Okay, Section 3, the Golden Age. Now, all this constant competition actually forged a really powerful state, which hit its absolute peak under its most legendary ruler, Krishnadevaraya. Krishnadevaraya, who ruled back in the early 16th century, he was the whole package. Militarily, the man was a genius. He conquered the Raichur Doab in 1512. This was a super important, fiercely fought-over piece of fertile land. Culturally, he was a huge patron of the arts and architecture, building these magnificent temples and even founding a whole new township called Nagalapuram. On top of all that, he was a scholar himself, and he wrote a classic work on statecraft. Under him, the City of Victory was at its absolute highest point. Section 4. How the empire ran. So military and cultural power is one thing, but how did this massive empire actually function? Day to day. What was the engine that made it all go? Well, a huge part of their power came down to horses. Seriously, high-quality war horses weren't native to India, so they had to be imported all the way from Arabia and Central Asia. This trade, which was first controlled by Arab merchants and later involved the Portuguese, was the absolute lifeblood of their military. If you want to be the Lord of Men, you need a powerful cavalry, and that meant you had to control the horse trade. Politically, the empire was held together by something called the Amaranayaka system. Let's just walk through it real quick. So first, the king grants a chunk of territory to his military commanders, who were called Nayakas. These Nayakas then collect taxes from everybody in their territory. With that money, they maintain their own private armies. And here's the crucial part. They provide military support back to the king and pay him a yearly tribute. It was a pretty genius system, really. It allowed them to effectively govern a huge territory. But it also had a big vulnerability. The king's power depended completely on the loyalty of these super powerful semi-independent Nayakas. Section 5. Fall and Legacy. But, as we know from the ruins, this incredible golden age was not going to last. After reaching such unbelievable heights, the empire's end was shockingly fast and, well, catastrophic. The trouble really kicks off in 1529 when Krishnadevaraja dies, creating a massive power vacuum. By 1542, his son-in-law, Ramaraya, is in control. Now, Ramaraya had a very, very risky foreign policy. He tried to play the rival Deccan sultanates, these powerful states to the north, against each other. And for a while, it actually worked. But eventually, the sultans figured out they were being manipulated, and they decided to unite against their one common enemy, Vijayanagar. Everything, absolutely everything, leads to one single fateful year, 1565. This is the year the City of Victory would face its final and its most decisive battle. In 1565, at the Battle of Talikota, the combined armies of the Deccan sultans, we're talking Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda, completely crushed the Vijayanagar army. Ramaraya was captured and executed right there on the battlefield. And with the army shattered and its leader dead, the path to the capital was suddenly wide open. The difference could not be more stark. Before this one battle, Vijayanagar was a beacon of wealth and power. After, the victorious armies marched on the undefended city, and for months they just systematically sacked, plundered, and burned it to the ground. The City of Victory was destroyed, abandoned, and left to become the ruins we see today. And that solves the mystery we started with. You know, the ruins of Hampi tell us this grand, epic story of kings, battles, and empires. We can see the vision of the rulers in the grand temples and palaces, but they also leave us with this one final, really powerful question. These amazing buildings tell us all about the kings, but what about the ordinary people? The artisans, the laborers, the farmers, whose lives and work made this City of Victory even possible? Who were the engineers that designed it all? How were the laborers paid? That's a story the stones can't fully tell us, and it leaves a very human mystery right at the heart of these imperial ruins.